I'm lucky to be sitting here with the beautiful white rhino. The thing I love about these guys is their horn. But sadly, that horn is also what's meaning these guys get poached. It's used in traditional medicine and a status of power and prestige.
The truth is rhino horn provides none of those so-called medicinal benefits. And rhino are an iconic wildlife drawcard that are amazing to see in the wild, especially in South Africa. The lure of South Africa started hundreds of years ago when the wild game roamed the landscape, a land of big beasts and kings of nature. The contrast of animals that dotted the landscape must have daunted the early hunters and travellers. Imagine a time before the cities and fences rose, a wild, untamed land. Today, the wild game may not be as prolific as yesteryear, and the tribes engulfed by cities. But the people who are lured to this ancient land are still amazed by the natural realm. With modern convenience comes ease of travel and a barrage of excited travellers. But also in a modern world, some people value money and power more than they value wildlife and habitats. Mix in the ugly game of wildlife poaching, and some of the world's most iconic species, like the rhino, are being pushed to extinction.
The use of this commodity has been in the Chinese culture for longer than what Christianity is old, you know. So it's something that's deeply ingrained in their cultural beliefs. Some of them, live in very rural areas, and they don't have the education or the access to education for people to tell them that this is actually nonsense.
Other countries like Vietnam also trade rhino horn for their beliefs, forcing the Javan rhino to become extinct in their country. While other Asian species are now critically endangered. But against the odds, a strong will and great people fight for rhinos and other amazing endangered species. A battle to keep them all on our planet. Kruger National Park is South Africa's oldest and largest park. Add to the mix over 20 private game reserves, and you now have the Greater Kruger National Park, an area of 2 million hectares. Kruger also borders the Limpopo National Park in Mozambique to create an even larger protected area and enable countries to work together to protect wildlife from poaching while increasing wildlife refuges. For tourists, it offers a chance to learn about Africa's species and play our role in conservation.
Wildlife is an integral part of our tourism offering, but it's about more than just a tourism offering. It is about playing our part in conservation. In 1964, South Africa had just over 500,000 head of game. Today, we have over 24 million head of game that roam freely in this country. And we've used tourism as a way to help us to protect the earth. If you look at something like the white rhino, there are 5,000 white rhino on private land. There are 13,000 white rhino on state land. Now that is out of a total white rhino population worldwide of 29,000. So we play this very, very constructive role in assisting conservation to stop animals from extinction.
We're tracking one of the most endangered species around here, and that's the beautiful wild dogs. These guys are amazing with their speckled kind of coat and their massive ears, but there's not many of these beautiful animals left. They're Africa's second most endangered carnivore and often referred to as the painted wolf.
Wild dog are diurnal hunters. They tend to hunt in the early morning and the late evening. And as we move into the nighttime, we'll actually stop following them because of the pressure they receive from the larger predators such as hyena, leopard and lion. It's actually one of the big talking points is that wild dogs are being extremely affected by climate change. As the heat of the day extends and this area gets warmer, their hunting periods are getting shorter and shorter. You're looking at about 6,000 left in the world. And in the Kruger National Park area, probably only about 400 left. Us observing these animals at night with the spotlight, we are putting them in danger of other larger predators that are just about to get active now. So we'll leave them and we'll only do these guys during the daytime.
Pretty special to see something like that.
Yeah, fantastic. As they are very rare to see. You can travel Africa for many, many years and you may not get the opportunity to see a nice large pack like this. And it's been a very nice experience following them most of the afternoon on a little bit of an evening hunt.
There are over 10,000 privately owned game ranches in South Africa. And the beauty of this is most of those are what you would call marginal agricultural land, so you cannot use it for anything else. And where safari has been great, we were able to repopulate those areas with animals that were originally there. So they stay regionally extinct in the region, but they're not extinct in South Africa. And I think people need to understand that every time they come into the country, we use tourism to help conservation to pay for itself.
Kruger National Park extends 360 kilometres from north to south and 65 kilometres from east to west in the provinces of Limpopo and Mpumalanga in northeastern South Africa. But what does it take to manage and protect this area?
I was CEO warden of the Kruger National Park. The years 94 until 99, I went into park management. And I went to the Pontebok National Park, and then I went to the Addo Elephant National Park, and then to the Karoo National Park, the newly established park, and then to the Richtersveld National Park, which I got with the community, I got it going and so on, and then back to Kruger in the long run. It's been immensely interesting, and I think someone asked me recently, what would you like to be remembered for? And I said, for bringing communities into the parks.
Tell me how you manage the wildlife, because obviously the national park's set up for the wildlife. So how do you protect that wildlife and manage that wildlife with so many conflicting?
Yeah, I think obviously you have the staff, the rangers, and you manage and look at their interactions, and you set limits of acceptable change. So you would look at the vegetation over here and you would say, that is the desired state. That is how I want it to be, with all the accompanying animal and rest camps and tourism facilities and so on. And you say, all right, I'm going to accept that that might change 15% above that mean or 15% below that mean, in which case I would have to take some action. And that action would depend on what the problem was, which you would have to monitor. You know. Kruger is in the region of 2.2 million hectares, and now with the addition in the part of Mozambique, which we started negotiating for in '95, and eventually got that. It's another 1.4 or so million, so it's roughly 3.5 million hectares. We need to protect that. And that is, I believe, in the term World Heritage Site, which means it belongs to us all, as do all the other national parks. The heritage of this place is not for the current owner, but it's the benefit of the future people as well. So, and having tourism or having counter-poaching, various integrated activities would bring a multi-skill, multi-educational, multi-environmental environment to us all, I think, in the long run.
I am at the Subby Sands Private Game Reserve, and it borders the Kruger National Park. They both share a 50-kilometre stretch of unfenced area, and that's good news. That means a private game reserve mixed with a national park helps increase the conservation of this area, and all the amazing wildlife species can now freely move without fences in between. How big is the Subby Sands Game Reserve?
So the Subby Sands is about 65,000 hectares of land, and that borders onto the Kruger National Park, and our animals are free to roam all the way into the Kruger National Park and likewise back into our side at any point.
So there used to be a lot of fences, but they've pulled them all down?
Yeah, in 1993 there was still a fence separating the Subby Sands and the Kruger National Park, and that fence was brought down then in order to try and increase the size of the larger national park.
So Subby Sands gets its name because it's between two rivers.
In we got the Sand River up here in our section, and then down in the south of the reserve you have the Sabi River, and those two rivers flow through the Subby Sands initially and then will join up in the Kruger National Park itself. Approximately about 25 landowners, and they will have multiple lodges, some of them. So you're looking somewhere between 30 and 40 different lodges that acquire that whole 65,000 hectares of land. They all contribute towards a management team. We pretty much hire experts in their fields of ecology and everything to manage the reserve for us. This land here in Africa has to have some type of purpose in order to generate an income for investors to kind of keep the land as conservation land. And as a guest, you coming and paying to stay at the lodges, that all subsequently ends up going into the management of this land and keeping it as this wild, beautiful piece of game reserve that we do have. So yeah, directly from coming here, you will be supporting this area entirely.
So I've loved my stay here. I've got to see the Big Five. Had an incredible time. But what's so special about Savannah?
Coming to Savannah is like joining a family. Our lodge is quite small, and when you enter, you're joining the Savannah family for a period of 3 or 4 days, however long you might be here for. And that personal touch is what we kind of strive to give every guest. And a combination of the lodge and the experience there, as well as the incredible game viewing that you do get in this region. The Sand River is one of the best game viewing rivers in Africa, and a combination of all of those things makes Savannah quite unique.
Savannah delivered the amazing Big Five: the lion, leopard, elephant, buffalo, and rhino. It was also an opportunity for my teenage son to understand the value of wildlife.
He's a budding wildlife photographer.
And how important it is for ecosystems to hold biodiversity. His future depends on protection of habitats and species to maintain the crucial balance.
There is something really peaceful about early mornings. You can hear the birds chirping. And behind me, we still have the mist lying in the low valley from the cool night. There is a moon that's setting, a sun that's rising. Night animals go to bed while the day animals wake. It's the changing moods of Mother Nature. We've got all our grazing animals, wildebeest, our zebras that love the open plains, but you've also got the lions, the cheetahs, and a lot of the cats that love the forests and using the forest as protection, hunting. In order to find a lot of these animals, you need to rely on experts.
That have been walking along the road here, part of that pride. We're live sporting over there, which is most probably the male.
Yep.
And then the second set is just to the left over here, which will be a female.
So, Dan, you're saying it's like reading a newspaper, what's happened the night before?
Most definitely. So we wake up in the morning and we read the morning paper, we analyse what the animals have done overnight, and then we follow the tracks to try and figure out whereabouts these animals have moved, what their behaviour's been at night time. And the best thing about tracking is that if you follow those footprints, you will find the animal.
Is that why you call it a tracker life? So you can actually track the animals?
Yes.
Yeah. I have a lioness and 3 cubs that we've been tracking for a couple of hours now. It's incredible to be able to watch the behaviour of these animals get up really close and personal. We've seen them drinking water, we've seen them suckling, we've seen them playing together, and we've seen the mother actively listening and almost like she's on guard for a hunt at any stage. But it's so incredible because you get into the lives of these animals and you get to see a little bit more than the average person would ever get to see. 6 months old, her 3 little cubs, and so she's got a big job ahead of her, this mother. She's got to keep these 3 cubs alive, and not only that, the big male has been stealing her kills. Oh, thank you. How old's this lioness?
She's just turned 4 years old. So she's, right at the beginning of her breeding life. This will be her first litter. Always, cubs have got lots of energy. When mom might be sleeping over there, the cubs will be up and about all over the place.
She's still got an eye open, it looks like, though.
Yeah, we're very protective of the lionesses over their cubs. Maybe listening for the rest of the pride as well, but also always keeping an ear open if there's any chance of hunting.
Now, she stood up before and she kind of had a look. Do you know what that might be for?
Potentially the wind is coming from our southern side here, so she lifted her nose right high into the air, meaning that she'd probably smelled something from the south, and that's what caught her attention.
So she's thinking of her cubs, right? So if any presence of danger
Exactly,
or...
definitely. So the main danger to these guys by themselves like this is probably going to be hyena. If you get a few hyenas together, it can give them a little bit of trouble. But then the only other real big threat to them would be other prides of lions.
So another male is their biggest threat?
Yeah. In order for cubs to survive, male lions need to be dominant in an area for a minimum of about 3 years. Our old males are probably not going to see the next 2 years, which means these chances of these cubs surviving is actually quite low.
Hunger and survival means sometimes these cubs need to be left alone while their mother goes hunting. These 3 young ones the following day were left with a slightly older cub, a foster big brother.
The lionesses managed to trick 2 new males that came into the area and convince them that this older cub was actually their offspring, whereas he's actually the previous male's offspring. Now, normally a male coming into the area would have killed off that cub, but the lionesses were able to maybe convince him that they're actually his cub.
These little cubs are young enough that they can still get up the tree, and their brother, who's coming up now, is probably about as old as you'll get to see a lion up a tree. So cute. He's showing off the older one, saying, I can still climb trees. He's showing his little brother, look, wants to get higher. Here comes the little one. This guy's not as good at climbing. He's finding it harder. He's obviously not as expert as his little brother. Pulling him down by the tail. My turn. My turn. So one of the coolest animals that we have here is the giraffe, because everybody loves how big they get and how long their necks are for all their feeding that they do on all the trees, the high trees. And here we have 2 beautiful giraffes in the background. I love the patterns on these animals. It's quite elaborate, like someone's painted them. But they're also really, their little horns and their massive long legs just make them so different to so many other animals. Wildlife is having such a hard time on our planet at the moment because so many species are becoming endangered. But in order to conserve things, sometimes you've got to give up a little bit. And I think that's what tourism does. They get looked at by so many people, but it also offers them protection. Cool, well, we've seen the big five. High five.
There we go.
The big five. This area here, where all the private landowners have got together to conserve this location, is the reason these guys can live happily without worrying about poaching or being killed by outsiders.
Most of us here are photographers. It'd almost be a crime not to be with the opportunity we're given. She's got a couple of yawns there, so she's probably going to get up. A young leopard like this is very often will sleep up in the trees as well. They don't necessarily come down to the ground to sleep, but on hot days like this, she won't have the cover of the branches as much, so she'll move down into the shade of the different bushes.
The female leopard made her way to the tree and eyed off her kill before displaying the incredible agility and power. Leopards have adapted to eating in trees to avoid other predators from stealing their kill. An opportunistic hyena was living in hope at the bottom of the tree.
Our patience has been rewarded. We finally saw this beautiful leopard climb the tree to eat a carcass. We've been waiting all afternoon. She's been sitting in the shade waiting for the coolness to come. The clouds came over and that probably helped out her timing. And now she's up there chewing on the last of the carcass. She'll chew on a carcass for about 2 days, and then you probably won't see her for another few days until she catches another one.
So we're very fortunate in this area to view these cats over long periods of time, and the specific 5-year-old female that we're looking at today, I was very fortunate to see her very early on in her life, when she was about 6 weeks old.
So there is a continuous education and tourism point that we're bringing in on the one side from South African tourism, and we work very strong to develop it. Why would you worry about baby elephants if you've never seen it? We have a really, really awesome saying that says what we need to do is not leave a better earth for our children, we need to leave better children for our earth.
The foot of a terrorist now.
When an elephant is in musts, it constantly leaks urine, and testosterone levels can be as much as 6 times greater than at other times, making them much more confrontational.
I think he's kind of sort of thinking that we're in his space. So he's kind of showing us how tough he is, showing his dominance in this area.
The favourite thing I've seen so far would probably be that leopard ran up his tree and caught, ate his food. That was pretty cool.
What's your second favourite?
Oh yeah, when the lion cubs, they were climbing up the tree.
So the whole plan is to expose these children to environmental and game activities. Once they understand that, they are never, when they run the world, going to make decisions on a profit and loss basis without considering the earth.
Well, we've had an incredible day here at Savannah and seen the amazing sights of wildlife. We're just watching 2 white rhino chewing on this long grass as the sun set in the distance behind us. Pretty special.
As the sun set over the harsh landscape and a blood moon rose, I reflected back at the incredible experience Savannah had offered me. I did not want to leave and enjoyed a farewell dinner and fire in traditional style with a beautiful savannah family who had shared their home and animal friends. My next destination would be at the southern end of the Sabi Sands Game Reserve and the exclusive Salati Camp.
There are many lodges you can choose in the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, but this is an amazing spot. Not only can I look out at zebra drinking from the waterhole, but we literally had lions in our backyard. When people think of Africa, they think of wildlife and they think of big game. It's quite exciting. What do you think when people come here that you like to show them?
Well, basically, the first thing, very few people are familiar with what we have and what we showcase. So this is a first-time experience for them. So just being able to show them animals in their natural environment and then obviously treating them to the truth, warm South African hospitality makes for, I think, an unbelievable combination. We've got quite a diverse property. Down up in the northern side of the property, we're more like your sandy crest soils, your woodland savanna, your big open areas. You're going down to the south. What you have down in the south would be your granite, your rocky outcrops. On the southern side, we've got the Sabi River flowing, which is great for animal life. And we've got a lot of these small little rivers running through the property as well. And also we are open to the Kruger National Park, which allows frequent movement of animals from Sabi/Sabi Sands into the Kruger Park and vice versa.
So Sydney, this is the Sabi River?
Yes. This is our local river. We call it a perennial river in English, which it flows out throughout the year. So that's why if someone wants to visit the river to do fishing, they used to tell him that he must be aware of crocs. So all the time or continuously, everybody used to say that is a fear area, which means Sawa in our local language.
So it's the river of fear. Don't swim in the river.
Don't swim in the river, otherwise you'll get the crocs and hippos. This is a border of Sabi Sands and Kruger National Park. And as a Sabi Sand, we're not allowed to cross over the river to Kruger National Park. And the Kruger National Park, they're not allowed to cross to come to our area.
So the river of fear is a natural border.
Yeah, fear is our natural border.
Awesome, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you think it really helps Kruger National Park having this private reserve as a buffer zone?
Definitely. I think at the end of the day, opening up and dropping fences between the Kruger National Park and private landowners just creates a bigger wildlife area, creating these big, vast, open areas for wildlife, which is great. Most of the guys have grown up in the local community. They've grown up in the bush. Most of them starting off as cattle herders when they were young, honing their tracking skills like that. And then we take them, we employ them, and we train them. These guys bringing in the local knowledge and the bush skills that they've learned, like hands-on in the bush, where you find your rangers coming in and learning and feeding off these guys.
So this plant or tree is called a buffalo thorn, Ziziphus macronata. Very nice tree to eat. You know, if you're stuck in the bush.
Tasty.
Why they said it can be easily hook the spirit for the person who passed away. That you can carry on with your life, according to the straight thorn, but don't forget where you're coming from, according to the hook thorn. So you have to remember all your past, like your ancestors and everything, according to this. So we as a black people, actually, we're not allowed to make a fire out of this wood. The impala, they like to eat this. The giraffe, they like to eat this. The mouth of a giraffe actually been protected by what they call a horny papilla, and plus the thick saliva as well. So if you're gonna come and put the tongue right here, you can repeat all these leaves. I won't get hurt because the mouth and plus the tongue as well are well protected, and there's a less amount of tannin as well. So the leaves, they taste very good.
They like to nest in thorny trees. because also the thorns of the trees will help to
Protect
keep
them.
away predators. But this tree is called a knobthorn.
I wouldn't climb that tree. It doesn't look like much fun. So what are these little guys we're looking at?
So these little guys, it's called a dwarf mongoose, and it's the smallest of our mongoose species. And we just saw them foraging now, digging little holes, trying to dig up little insects.
Like that guy right there. Look
That's
at him.
correct.
Yeah.
And by digging around in the dung of animals like impala dung, that's exactly where you might find the beetles that feed off of the dung. So they kind of know where their restaurants are out here.
So how many mongoose types have we got here?
So we get around, more commonly that we'll see are 3 or maybe even 4. So we get the dwarf mongoose, we get the slender mongoose, the white-tailed mongoose, and the banded mongoose. 2 of those are communal, so your dwarf mongoose and your banded mongoose, they live in groups, whereas your slender mongoose and your white-tailed mongoose are more solitary, and you often see them alone.
They're pretty cute, these guys.
Yeah, I like watching them. They're very curious,
Yeah.
always looking at you, and if you drive past them, they run away. Give them a few seconds and their heads are bobbing out and taking a look at what's going on.
It's pretty cool. I'm watching this dung beetle put all his pieces of poo together to make a giant ball, and you can see him with his front little legs picking up the poo and making the ball. So, what's the importance of these guys?
So, dung beetles are very important for the ecosystem to recycle a lot of nutrients back into the soil, almost like termites, taking all the dead plant material into their mounds.
Basically, this guy turns that poo back into organic matter that
That's
goes
it.
back into the earth.
Recycling nutrients, it'll take a long time for this nutrients to seep back into the soil lying on the surface. But by this dung beetle building this ball, he actually buries it underground. As it rains, ground gets more saturated, ready available for grass, trees, plants to
He
absorb the nutrients.
helps feed the earth.
Some of the nicest light is in the late afternoon, but these animals are fully aware to remain on guard as the sun sets. Every now and then, nature allows you a glimpse into the secret lives of endangered animals. Leopards are an elusive cat. But what happened next was a rare encounter. Leopards can mate every 15 minutes for up to 5 days, meaning they can mate more than 250 times due to the male's weak sperm. For the survival of cubs, if a female feels it's not a territorial male, she holds the ability to make herself less fertile to ensure stronger genes in her cubs. The female's gestation period lasts from 90 to 105 days.
Yeah, I try to keep group view, but it's almost impossible to follow you to keep visual of those inwards. Do you visual again?
Yeah.
So we've been following these leopards for over an hour now, and they've been mating. Now it's pretty rare to even see leopards in the wild, so to be able to see these beautiful cats mate is an absolute privilege. You can hear them in the background. The females come back to the male and they're growling. They're such a beautiful cat to watch. You can hear it, listen to this, hear the growl. We're lucky enough to be here with the white rhino, but sadly these guys are very endangered. They've been poached a lot in the last number of decades because of their beautiful horn.
Well, obviously there's a big feeling about the rhino, both black and white rhino, and that's because of the horn trade. The most iconic public image is rhino, leopard, elephant, pangolin.
With rhino poaching, one of the things that help us to control that is to have a DNA database of the rhino. Our scientists have been brilliant. They've discovered a way that you can extract DNA from the horn of a rhino. So when you have poaching issues, and you can actually then link the horn back to that specific rhino, which of course then creates a completely different ballgame in a court of law, because now it's heavy fines and penalties. But it costs a lot of money. So we have started opening up our vet safaris to tourists, where people can literally go to the game lodges and say, please show me your schedule. And they can go with the veterinarian when they dart these rhinos to extract the DNA. So tourism is paying for the whole set of the rhino project.
Well, we're waiting in the field because today we get to dehorn some black rhino. They want to dehorn these rhinos for conservation because they don't want them to be poached. So at the moment we're waiting for the chopper. I can just hear her coming in now. And we also will have a vet with us today, and we will tranquilise these beautiful animals and hopefully protect this species, one of the most endangered rhino species in the world. She's one of the female chopper pilots in this area, one of the most experienced pilots in Kruger National Park. Hello.
Hello.
Lynn.
I'm Jana.
Nice to meet you, Jana.
Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Thank you for picking us up.
It's a pleasure.
It's good to be able to do something for the black rhino.
Absolutely, and it's so special because it's black rhino.
I know.
It's not every day that you get to work with them, so it's really quite something. And they're so different to white rhino in how they behave with the whole, immobilization and everything. It's a completely different ball game. So I hope you've got your running shoes on.
I've got my running boots on. How many rhino have you been involved in this kind of capacity?
Sure, no, quite a lot.
Yeah.
I wish I actually counted all of them, but I unfortunately haven't. I think for the last month and a half, about 78.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not about, I know, for a specific reserve we did so many.
And was
So
that
got a
black and
privilege.
white, or was that primarily white?
That was white.
White rhino. Well, we have landed, and of course the ground crew are here. This is a pretty big operation, and we've met the vets and we've met the team involved today. So this is exciting.
What did they use for
So, Peter, you're a vet, but you're not a vet that looks after cats and dogs. You look after wild rhinos.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to become involved in the wildlife side of veterinary science. And so we work with all sorts of species, but mainly with rhinos. You know, with the poaching just increasing over the years to, well, it's an epidemic proportions, so much so that we've got about 8,000 rhinos left in the country, we think. And at 1,000 being poached a year, they're going to be gone in 8 to 10 years. So the anti-poaching guys are really, really good, but you know, there's just so much money involved. If you take into account that rhino horn is the single most valuable commodity on Earth, pound for pound, more valuable than gold, diamond, platinum, whatever you like. So the guys are prepared to take enormous risks to procure those horns. And they are very good at what they do, very good at what they do. So the anti-poaching units are battling, you know, they hear the shot, perhaps, or they see the tracks. By the time they find the carcass, the horns are gone already. So we've been doing things like ear notching on the ear so people can identify them and microchipping them, but it's all retrospective, you know, it's all after the fact. So the only proactive way that we now, and this is really the last throw of the dice, is to dehorn them. The use of this commodity, amongst other things, they say it's it cures, you know, it reduces fever, it cures cancer, it uses an aphrodisiac. It's just so firmly entrenched in their belief, you know. So to try and save the last rhinos, the only way to do it really is dehorning.
So we're right here. The chopper's right above the white rhino, so they've got it on the ground.
All right, obviously we've got to dart the animal first, eh? Find it, we saw how we battled today. Then we dart it.
Chopper's landing just there. You can see the white rhino just through here. He's been sedated, so he's just slowed down. Now they're moving in. Come round, get him round.
You'll notice we put those catheters into the ear veins. We always do that because you want to have immediate access to the animal should it stop breathing or should it need a topping up. And when we give the antidotes also through that catheter. It's the same catheter you use in humans, exactly the same. Cover the eyes because the eyes stay open during anesthesia, so you don't want the eyes to dry out, so we put an ophthalmic ointment in, an oily ointment with an antibiotic in it. Put that in, and then we cover the eye. So by closing the eyes like that, you're protecting the rhino's eyes from the sun and from dust, you know, from the dehorning and that. And then also it makes it a safe environment for the people working around there.
So this is the first rhino we've got. We've got the white rhino. You can see he's a white rhino. They're much wider on their mouths, but they've sedated him. They've now blindfolded him. They've marked where they're going to cut off the horn, and they've also marked the rhino so we don't chase this rhino again if he, once he wakes up, because we've got other rhinos we want to get in this area. So she's just getting ready to dehorn this animal, and hopefully that's what will save this beautiful rhino's life. It's tragic that we've got to do these things, but in this day and age, the rhino horn has come so valuable, and everybody wants a piece of it.
The rhino horn is very hard, as you noticed with the chainsaw today. It's got like the density of perspex, you know, plastic. But having said that, it's actually got a cellular structure where it's like tubules that are arranged together like this. You can actually isolate DNA from it. So it's got a cellular structure. So it's not keratin. That's a bit of a fallacy, in fact. It might look like it, but it actually isn't. This we didn't sort off right at the bottom because the rhino horn is mounted like a cone. If you look at the rhino skull, you know, it's got like a dish shape like that, but it's not flat. It's got like a little bony prominence here. And that's connected to the nasal sinuses, because then the horn is mounted like a cone on top, and that gives its strength. So when we cut the horn off, we've got to make sure we don't cut into those sinuses.
They're just turning him over because he's been on that side for a while. They need to turn him over.
You can imagine the pressure of over 2.5 tons on their legs for extended time. It takes many people to help out.
Okay, Janelle's giving the antidote. All right, guys, we don't want people sticking around. We're going to give the antidote.
They've finished dehorning the white rhino and they've given him the antidote, which means he could wake up at any time, so we had to get out of there. They've dehorned him. It's very hard to watch. It's kind of sad to see an animal like that lose his beautiful horn and kind of realise how much that horn's worth, but that's life these days to keep these guys alive. So mixed heart here. I know these guys are doing the best thing that they can to help fight saving these rhinos, but it's hard to watch such a beautiful animal have to go through stuff like this. Time to leave.
One is down. Did you copy?
Sorry, yes, just copied. It's going very static. Whereabouts are you?
Just on the side of that open area, right beside Ngati Center Camp.
They've just darted a black rhino, and we have to move pretty quickly because they darted it a little while ago. They're just measuring the horn now so they can work out how much horn to take off and marking it so they don't do this one again. But this is one of the really endangered animals here in South Africa. And so by taking this horn off, hopefully this species will have a chance at survival.
Between 1970 and 1992, the population of black rhino in the wild decreased from approximately 65,000 animals in Africa to just under 2,500 by 1993. Today, the black rhino population is recovering and increasing slowly, with estimates just over 5,000. But it's not just the policing on the ground that's important, but controlling corruption and monitoring exportation systems. So the demand which drives the trade of endangered species, including the rhino, is stopped globally.
Really like almost a brutal disfigurement of the animal. Not that it's painful, I mean, because we're sawing above the germinal layer. But it's just, you know, to have to go to those lengths, you know, with this chainsaw making this noise, it's just barbaric in a way to look at it.
2 horns like this worth that animal's life. They've nearly finished taking the horn off this animal, so with any luck very soon, another 15-20 minutes, this black rhino will be running back through the bush. May not be perfectly intact with its horn, but now there's every chance that no poachers will come near this place because it's not worth their time, because all the rhinos in this area will have had their horns cut off. So you can see these guys work in dangerous conditions, the vets, the anti-poaching units, to try and stop this trade of rhino horn poaching.
Certainly the results, the results have been, you know, worth the means. On these smaller reserves, we've reduced the poaching down to almost zero. It's all about risk versus reward. Is that poacher prepared to come in and risk his life just for a few grams, perhaps, or not? And it certainly proved to be the other way. I'm just glad it went well because, especially with black rhinos, things can go wrong. Because, you know, they end up in dams and rivers, and because you can't guide them. A white rhino you can guide. As I said, the white rhino slows down. Black rhino speeds up, and you can put the helicopter on his back, he'll still carry on going. So it's a huge relief when especially a black rhino goes well. plight of the rhino is really, really serious, you know. So we've tried to incorporate it because it's such a costly operation to carry out these exercises. We've tried to coordinate it with people who are really passionate about wildlife and to bring them out and and they can actually see the difference that they're making and also contributing financially to the cause.
It's not that much difference, yet somehow their belief that this is so valuable causes the extinction of a whole species. Let's hope this stops right now.
I reflect back on the amazing sights and sounds we experienced in South Africa and feel hope when I see the efforts this country has taken to keep their wildlife. In the modern era, we forget the most important thing on our planet is life itself, and we let fast profits drive extinction, destroying the fabric of biodiversity. This planet is full of nature's incredible ecosystems, landscapes shaped over time, and billions of different characters that make the world far more colourful. Humans are just one of those billions of species.